All right, really glad to be here. Thanks to EdSurge for organizing this. I always feel like at a podium I need a step stool. I don't know if you all ever saw Martha Cator, who's about this tall, literally would be like this looking at all of you. She made it on the Jay Leno show as they made a joke about the U.S. Department of Education needs to invest in a step stool. So podiums are an innovation that needs some adjusting. All right, anyway, that's not what we're talking about here. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Katie, and also Pam and Phyllis. Just great things to kind of get started. It is a bit of a long afternoon, but super interesting. And after this, you're going to hear from some students, which I think will be kind of round out the time together. So, automation, artificial intelligence, you all hear about this, you read about it, lots of things going on. For example, advanced manufacturing, robots that can put together cars. And I don't know if you saw earlier this year, Elon Musk admitted that maybe they went just a little too far, a little too many robots, a little too much going on, a little too fast, and they kind of had to back off. But so as these innovations are happening, there's also a lot of adjusting going on. It's not a clean line fast into the future. So this is one, advanced manufacturing, and in this picture we don't see any people, but what they're trying to do is add people and figure out where the people need to be best placed to make sure that the process works well. We also hear about machine reading of x-rays, right? So that you can have a much more efficient, and if you're in a rural area or wherever you might be, the efficiency of having x-rays read. If any of you have ever been to an emergency room, it's one thing to take your x-rays, it's another thing to sit around waiting until someone gets around to reading them. But what's interesting about this is, yes, the machines can read the x-rays, but the machines don't have empathy when they come and tell you what they see in the x-rays. So again, making sure the people in the equation are kind of at their highest purpose. If we think about customer service or semantic analysis, right, of words and responses to what you say, whether it's Alexa or Siri or the customer service person on the phone or on your computer when the little chatbot pops up. Again, these can only go so far. There is a lot of automation. It definitely takes the load off some of the people that have been in that kind of a business, but we also know that it only goes so far, and people do need to be ready to solve the more complex issues. This is actually a self-driving car, and this is a picture I actually took when I was driving, but I didn't get a ticket that time. I was driving, and it was in 2013, which I thought was interesting, because I went back to find this picture, because I wanted something that I didn't have to figure out who took it and where to give credit. 2013, and it surprised me that it was that long ago that I took this photo. And at the time, I talked to an insurance agent, actually one of the executives at State Farm, and he was saying at this time, back then, that he thought in about 18 months, our insurance rates would be cut in half because of self-driving cars, because of automation of cars. And what's interesting is insurance rates for the newer vehicles actually are going down, but we definitely don't have fully automated cars. I do have a colleague that was just in a significantly bad accident, got hit by a car when he was on a bicycle, got hit by the car, but the car stopped on a dime, so it didn't actually continue to run him over. And it was because it had the technology. It was a 2018, had the technology that stops. So super interesting. So automation is with us. Artificial intelligence is with us, but how we apply those is something that human beings and mere mortals are figuring out every single day. So today's kindergarten class, I'm sure you've all done this math. I hadn't, kind of surprised me. 2031 is when they'll graduate. So this was from the McKinley Global Institute just recently. While there may be enough work to maintain full employment to 2030, under most scenarios, the transitions will be very challenging, matching or even exceeding the shifts out of agriculture and out of manufacturing. So this is significant, and this is just in the time from the time our children in first grade to the time they graduate. The estimation is that in the United States, So some of this is global. So there are, in this report, you can see global statistics and midpoints and all sorts of statistics, which I'm sure Katie's probably very familiar with. But in the US, up to 54 million workers may need to switch occupational categories. So this doesn't mean that they're going to be out of work, but they definitely need to learn, right? So if we think about these categories of healthcare and finance, IT, advanced manufacturing. These are all areas that will have jobs, but the jobs are different. And again, we think about raising people to the highest possible category, what people are the best at. So we can obviously apply this to education. Okay, so the question is, with these students that are now in our schools, what will improve the future prospects for them? What do we do today, tomorrow, this year, next year? What do we do to make sure that they are not being educated for something in the past? I liked Katie's notion of full spectrum standards and assessments. We've talked about this forever. We have to get there. We have to get to a point where we actually are valuing and recognizing the full development of our students. So we all in this room, I think probably all talk about innovation a lot, right? So what we're trying to talk about is inclusive innovation. It's a little bit of a shift in our thinking, and actually it's interesting when we think about the iPhone. The iPhone was and is a tremendous innovation, and especially at the beginning, it was an innovation kind of targeted at wealthier people. iPhones have always been sort of expensive in the category, right? So if we think about inclusion, how do we sort of rectify innovation and thinking something has gone tremendously to scale while thinking about inclusion? So inclusive innovation removes the barriers to access, number one, for people underrepresented, and inclusive innovation creates and catalyzes opportunities for enabling people of all diverse categories, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, to successfully lead innovations, participate in them, participate in the development of them, and also benefit from them. So 3 things, right? So we expand the definition of an innovation. So an innovation might be a technology or a phone or a form and function kind of thing. It might be that you figured out, as our friends in Middletown did, how to put a laundromat in a school so that students who needed a place to do laundry could wash their clothes. That is, in fact, a solution to a problem. It's an innovation. And if everyone has access, then they can use that. So the second is the creators, right? So when you think about this, instead of doing things for people, it's how do we bring people in, bring them to the table, work with students, with families, with parents, with others on solving a complex challenge. Many times in education, we love to solve, well, in this audience, we love to solve challenges. How do we make sure we're doing so with the people that we're solving the problem for? And so expanding beyond, making sure that creators, it's not just those with academic achievement or professional attainment or leadership or authority, right? How do we make sure we expand the creators, the massive creators of innovations? And finally, obviously, the end users, making sure that we expand beyond those who have sort of direct and unrestricted access today. So this is inclusive innovation. So here's just a quick little thought exercise. If you think about an innovation in your school, and you think about innovation along the bottom axis and equity on the upper axis, right? So is this an innovation that's a small adaptation, an adaptation of something you have already done, or is it something that really builds something new? It breaks down some significant challenge. It solves something significant. And on the equity axis, is it a defined participant group, or have you really figured out how to broaden participation? So I'll give you just one example. So at Digital Promise, we run the Verizon Innovative Learning Schools. So you might have seen they have now advertisements, and they're like announcing things about this project. It's 5 years in, so it's not a new project. And at the beginning, it really was kind of a bit of an adaptation. It's a one-to-one initiative, right? We provided iPads and then data plans for all students and teachers. right? So they had access inside of school and outside of school on day one. So that breaks down the digital divide for every single student and teacher in these schools. We also obviously wrapped around with lots of leadership support, professional development, coaching, in-classroom coaching, technical support, parent involvement support. So lots of wraparound services as well. So when I think about this project, it definitely on the equity spectrum, it's up there, right? Because we are including low-income schools. The average is 73% free and reduced lunch. Of all of the students we work with. There's 87,000 students now that we have participating in this program. So it's a large program. When I think about the technology, we have applied and continue every single day to apply research, number one, and data for continuous improvement. So it's not just like doing a thing and finishing it and rolling it out. It's then continuous improvement, getting better and better and better. So that's an example. So you can take any innovation that you have and kind of plot it on this 2x2. So if you take Maker Learning, you might think about, well, we have this in our libraries, and students, with those teachers who are brave enough to bring their kids down to the library and work in the maker space, those kids are the ones who get access. Or maybe you have something where students get access when they're finished with their regular work, and on and on and on. So you can think of any of your what you consider innovations or different things that you've done, and this is just a random list on the right, just to kind of as story starters. But if you think of something, think about where you would place it on this 2x2, and then think about how you could move it. Either we'll move it up and to the right? Either move it along the innovation axis by using data and continuous improvement, or move it up the equity axis by involving more people. So that's inclusive innovation. So I'm going to end this with Jack Ma. Jack Ma, CEO of Alibaba, founder of Alibaba in China. He was speaking at the World Economic Forum, and it's almost like an unlikely place that you'd hear somebody saying pretty much what we have been saying. But this is kind of from this kind of highest level of economics and finance. If we think about the sustainable economy, if we think about national security, if we think about social justice, we have got to change the way that we run our schools. So here is Jack Ma saying it quickly.
Education, it's a big challenge now. If we do not change the way we teach, 30 years later we'll be in trouble. Because the way we teach, the thing we teach our kids are the things the past 200 years, it's knowledge-based. And we cannot teach our kids to compete with machine who is smarter. We have to teach something unique. That is, machine can never catch up with us.
So very simply, we need to figure out those things which are uniquely human. And as we consider the innovations in our schools, in our classrooms, with our teachers, with our families, let's think about those things that are uniquely human and set our students up for the very best possible future prospects. Thank you very much.